They told you your enemies are out there. People who doubt you, people who hate you, people who try to stop you. But what if I told you that's a lie? What if the real enemy has been with you all along, watching your every move, controlling your every decision? It's the voice in your head that whispers, "You're not good enough." It's the fear that stops you right before you take the biggest step of your life. It's the doubt that turns your dreams into excuses. You don't lose because others are stronger. You lose because you fight yourself every single day. And the scariest part? This enemy knows all your weaknesses, because it is you. So the real question is, are you ready to face the toughest battle of your life? Self-doubt is one of the most powerful forces that quietly controls a person's life, often without them even realizing it. It doesn't arrive loudly or aggressively. Instead, it creeps in slowly, planting small seeds of uncertainty in your mind. At first, it may just feel like hesitation or overthinking, but over time, it grows into a constant inner voice that questions your abilities, your worth, and your potential. This voice doesn't shout. It whispers, and that's what makes it so dangerous. Because whispers are easy to believe, especially when they sound like your own thoughts. You might have experienced moments where you were fully capable of doing something, yet you held yourself back. Not because you lacked skill or knowledge, but because a part of you wasn't convinced you could succeed. That hesitation is not reality. It is self-doubt taking control. It convinces you to play small, to avoid risks, and to stay in your comfort zone. It tells you that you are not ready, not talented enough, or not deserving of success. Over time, you begin to accept these thoughts as facts, even though they are nothing more than distorted perceptions. What makes self-doubt even more dangerous is how it disguises itself as logic. It makes you believe you are being realistic, cautious, or practical. It tells you that dreaming big is risky, that aiming higher might lead to failure, and that it's safer to settle for less. But in reality, this so-called logic is just fear wearing a mask. It's a defense mechanism designed to protect you from discomfort, rejection, and failure. However, in trying to protect you, it also prevents you from growing. Every time you listen to self-doubt, you reinforce its power. Each missed opportunity, each postponed decision, and each abandoned goal becomes proof in your mind that you were right to doubt yourself. This creates a cycle that is hard to break. The more you doubt yourself, the less you act, and the less you act, the more your confidence fades. Eventually, you may find yourself stuck in a place where you want more from life but feel incapable of reaching it. Self-doubt also has a way of distorting how you see others. You begin to believe that everyone else is more capable, more confident, and more deserving than you. You compare your behind-the-scenes struggles to their highlight reels and conclude that you are falling short. But what you don't see is that many of those people are battling their own inner doubts as well. The difference is that they choose to act despite those doubts, while self-doubt convinces you to wait until you feel ready, a moment that rarely comes. Another way self-doubt limits your potential is by affecting your decisions. Instead of choosing paths that align with your true desires, you start making choices based on fear. You might avoid opportunities that could lead to growth simply because they feel uncertain. You might stay in situations that no longer serve you because leaving feels too risky. Over time, these choices shape your life, leading you further away from what you are truly capable of achieving. It also impacts how you present yourself to the world. When you doubt yourself, it shows in your body language, your tone of voice, and your actions. You may hesitate when speaking, downplay your achievements, or avoid putting yourself in situations where you could be judged. This not only affects how others perceive you, but also reinforces your own belief that you are not confident or capable. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where your internal doubts create external results that seem to confirm them. Self-doubt doesn't just affect big decisions. It influences your daily habits and behaviors. It can stop you from starting something new, from finishing what you began, or from pushing through challenges. It makes you second-guess even the smallest actions, draining your energy and focus. Instead of moving forward with clarity and confidence, you become trapped in a loop of overthinking and hesitation. One of the most limiting aspects of self-doubt is how it shapes your identity. Over time, you may start to see yourself as someone who is not confident, not capable, or not successful. This identity becomes deeply ingrained, influencing how you think, feel, and act. It becomes a lens through which you view your entire life, filtering out evidence of your strengths and focusing only on your weaknesses. Yet the truth is that self-doubt is not a reflection of your actual abilities. It is a mental pattern that has been learned and reinforced over time. It may have developed from past failures, criticism, or negative experiences, but it does not define who you are or what you are capable of becoming. The problem is that when you believe your doubts, you give them authority over your life. Breaking free from self-doubt requires awareness. It begins with recognizing that the voice in your head is not always telling the truth. Just because you think something doesn't mean it is real. You have the ability to question those thoughts, to challenge them, and to replace them with more empowering beliefs. But this is not an instant process. It requires consistent effort and a willingness to step outside your comfort zone. Action plays a crucial role in overcoming self-doubt. Confidence is not something you wait for. It is something you build through experience. Every time you take a step despite your doubts, you weaken their hold on you. You prove to yourself that you are capable of more than you thought. These small victories accumulate over time, gradually replacing self-doubt with self-belief. It is also important to understand that self-doubt may never completely disappear. Even the most successful individuals experience moments of uncertainty. The difference is that they do not allow those moments to control their actions. They acknowledge the doubt, but they move forward anyway. They understand that growth requires discomfort and that waiting for perfect confidence is a trap. Self-doubt is not your enemy because it exists. It becomes your enemy when you let it dictate your choices. It limits your potential not by changing who you are, but by influencing what you do. And since your actions determine your results, the impact of self-doubt can shape the entire direction of your life. Fear of failure is one of the most deeply rooted psychological barriers that prevents people from taking meaningful action in their lives. It does not always appear as obvious fear. Often it hides behind excuses, delays, and carefully constructed reasons that seem logical on the surface. You tell yourself that you need more time, more preparation, or better conditions before you take the next step. But beneath all of that lies a single truth. You are afraid of what might happen if things do not go as planned. This fear has a powerful influence because it is tied to how you perceive yourself. Failure is not just seen as an event, it becomes personal. You begin to associate failing at something with being a failure as a person. That distinction is critical, yet fear blurs the line between the two. Instead of seeing failure as a temporary outcome or a learning experience, you see it as proof that you are not capable, not smart enough, or not good enough. This belief creates a strong emotional resistance to taking risks. From a young age, many people are conditioned to avoid failure. You are rewarded for getting things right and criticized or judged when you get things wrong. Over time, this creates a mindset where mistakes are seen as something to be ashamed of rather than something to learn from. As you grow older, this conditioning becomes deeply ingrained, shaping how you approach challenges and opportunities. You start to prioritize safety over growth, choosing paths where the risk of failure is minimal, even if it means sacrificing your true ambitions. Fear of failure also feeds on uncertainty. When the outcome of an action is unknown, your mind tends to imagine the worst possible scenarios. You picture yourself being judged, rejected, or embarrassed. You imagine losing time, money, or respect. These imagined outcomes feel so real that they trigger the same emotional response as if they were actually happening. As a result, you choose to avoid the situation altogether, believing that not trying is safer than risking failure. This avoidance, however, comes at a cost. Every opportunity you do not take is a chance for growth that you miss. Every idea you do not act on remains unrealized. Over time, these missed opportunities accumulate, creating a gap between where you are and where you could have been. This gap often leads to feelings of regret, frustration, and dissatisfaction. reinforcing the belief that you are stuck or incapable of change. Fear of failure also affects how you perform when you do take action. When you are overly focused on avoiding mistakes, you become tense and cautious. Instead of fully engaging with the task, your mind is preoccupied with what could go wrong. This reduces your ability to think clearly, make decisions, and perform at your best. Ironically, the fear of failure can increase the likelihood of making mistakes, creating a cycle where your fears seem to be validated. Another way this fear manifests is through perfectionism. You set extremely high standards for yourself and believe that anything less than perfect is unacceptable. While striving for excellence can be positive, perfectionism driven by fear is limiting. It causes you to delay starting or finishing tasks because you feel they are not good enough yet. You keep refining, adjusting, and overthinking, waiting for the perfect moment that never arrives. This not only slows your progress but also drains your energy and motivation. Fear of failure can also influence the goals you set for yourself. Instead of pursuing what truly excites or challenges you, you choose goals that feel safe and achievable. You lower your expectations to avoid the possibility of disappointment. While this may protect you from immediate discomfort, it also prevents you from discovering your full potential. You remain within a narrow range of experiences, never pushing beyond your limits. Social pressure plays a significant role in amplifying this fear. The opinions of others, whether real or imagined, can have a strong impact on your decisions. You worry about how people will perceive you if you fail. You fear being judged, criticized, or seen as inadequate. This fear of external validation often leads you to seek approval rather than authenticity. You make choices based on what others expect rather than what you truly want. It is important to recognize that failure itself is not the real problem. The problem is the meaning you attach to it. Failure is a natural part of any process that involves growth, learning, and improvement. Every successful person has experienced failure multiple times. The difference is that they do not interpret it as a reflection of their worth. They see it as feedback, as information that helps them adjust and move forward. When you begin to shift your perspective, fear of failure starts to lose its power. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" you begin to ask, "What can I learn?" This simple shift changes how you approach challenges. You become more willing to take risks, to experiment, and to step outside your comfort zone. You understand that failure is not the end, but a step in the process. Action is the most effective way to overcome this fear. The longer you wait, the stronger the fear becomes. It grows in your mind, fueled by imagination and uncertainty. But when you take action, even small steps, you begin to break that cycle. You gain real experience, which replaces imagined fears with actual knowledge. You realize that even if things do not go perfectly, you are still capable of handling the outcome. It is also important to accept that discomfort is a part of growth. Fear will not disappear before you act. It will often be present during the process. The key is to not let it control your decisions. You can feel fear and still move forward. You can be uncertain and still take action. This ability to act despite fear is what separates those who grow from those who remain stuck. Over time, as you continue to face your fears and take action, your confidence begins to build. Not because you never fail, but because you learn that failure is not something to be feared. It becomes something you can handle, something that contributes to your development. You start to trust yourself more, knowing that regardless of the outcome, you will find a way to move forward. Negative self-talk is one of the most subtle yet destructive forces that shapes a person's mindset and gradually erodes confidence from within. It operates quietly, often going unnoticed, because it feels like a natural part of your thinking. You don't always recognize it as something harmful. Instead, you assume it is simply you being honest with yourself. But over time, these internal conversations begin to define how you see yourself, what you believe you are capable of, and how you behave in different situations. This inner dialogue is formed through years of experiences, influences, and repeated patterns of thought. It may have started with criticism from others, failures that left a strong emotional impact, or comparisons that made you feel less than others. Gradually, these external voices become internalized, turning into a constant stream of thoughts that question your worth, your abilities, and your decisions. What once came from the outside becomes your own voice, and that is what makes it so powerful. Negative self-talk often appears in small, seemingly harmless statements. You might say to yourself, "I'm not good at this. I always mess things up," or "I'll never be as successful as others." These phrases may feel like momentary reactions, but when repeated frequently, they begin to form beliefs. Your brain does not easily distinguish between what is objectively true and what is repeatedly told to it. The more you say something to yourself, the more your mind accepts it as reality. One of the most damaging aspects of negative self-talk is how it generalizes experiences. A single mistake becomes evidence that you are incapable. A single failure becomes proof that you will always fail. Instead of viewing situations in isolation, your mind creates patterns that reinforce a negative identity. This distorted thinking prevents you from seeing your strengths and achievements, focusing only on your shortcomings. This internal negativity directly impacts your confidence. Confidence is not just about skills or achievements. It is about the belief that you can handle situations and challenges. When your inner voice constantly undermines you, it weakens that belief. Even if you have the ability to succeed, negative self-talk can convince you otherwise, leading you to hesitate, second-guess yourself, or avoid taking action altogether. It also affects how you approach opportunities. When faced with something new or challenging, your first reaction is influenced by your internal dialogue. Instead of thinking, "This is a chance to grow," you might think, "What if I fail?" or "I'm not ready for this." These thoughts create a barrier before you even begin. They reduce your willingness to take risks and explore new possibilities, keeping you confined to what feels safe and familiar. Negative self-talk does not only limit action, it also influences performance. When you enter a situation with a mindset filled with doubt and criticism, it affects your focus, energy, and decision-making. You may become overly cautious, trying to avoid mistakes rather than aiming for success. This reduces your effectiveness and increases the likelihood of errors, which then reinforces your negative beliefs about yourself. Another way it shapes your mindset is through comparison. You begin to measure yourself against others, often focusing on what they have achieved and what you lack. Your internal voice highlights their strengths while magnifying your weaknesses. This creates a distorted perception where you feel inferior, even when the comparison is not fair or accurate. Over time, this can lead to feelings of inadequacy and a constant sense of not being enough. Negative self-talk can also create a sense of helplessness. When you repeatedly tell yourself that you cannot improve or that things will not change, you begin to believe it. This belief reduces your motivation to try, because you assume that your efforts will not make a difference. It becomes a self-imposed limitation where you stop striving for better outcomes, not because they are impossible, but because you have convinced yourself they are. It is important to understand that this internal dialogue is not fixed. It may feel automatic, but it is a learned pattern that can be changed. The first step is awareness, recognizing when your thoughts are negative and questioning their validity. Just because a thought appears in your mind does not mean it is true. Many of these thoughts are exaggerated, biased, or based on past experiences that no longer define your present reality. Challenging negative self-talk requires you to examine the evidence behind your thoughts. When you think, "I'm not good enough," you can ask yourself, "What proof do I have?" Often you will find that there are examples that contradict this belief, times when you succeeded, learned, or improved. By bringing these examples to your attention, you begin to create a more balanced and realistic perspective. Replacing negative self-talk with constructive thoughts is another important step. This does not mean ignoring reality or pretending everything is perfect. It means shifting your focus from limitation to possibility. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," you might say, "I can learn how to do this." Instead of saying, "I always fail," you might say, "I didn't succeed this time, but I can improve." These small changes in language can have a significant impact on your mindset over time. Consistency is key in this process. Negative self-talk has often been reinforced over years, so changing it requires repeated effort. Each time you catch yourself engaging in negative thinking and choose to redirect it, you weaken the old pattern and strengthen a new one. Gradually, your internal dialogue becomes more supportive, encouraging, and aligned with your growth. Your environment also plays a role in shaping your self-talk. The people you interact with, the content you consume, and the experiences you expose yourself to can either reinforce negativity or support positivity. Surrounding yourself with influences that encourage growth and self-belief can make it easier to maintain a healthy internal dialogue. Over time, as your self-talk improves, your confidence begins to rebuild. You start to trust yourself more, take more risks, and approach challenges with a different mindset. Instead of being your harshest critic, you become your own supporter. This shift does not eliminate difficulties or failures, but it changes how you respond to them. You become more resilient, more adaptable, and more willing to keep moving forward despite setbacks. Negative self-talk shapes your mindset not because it is true, but because it is repeated and believed. When you change the way you speak to yourself, you change the way you see yourself. And that transformation influences every aspect of your life, from the decisions you make, to the actions you take, and the results you achieve. Mastering your mind is one of the most powerful skills you can develop, because everything you achieve or fail to achieve begins within your thoughts. Your mind acts as the control center of your life, influencing your decisions, emotions, behaviors, and ultimately your results. When your mind is undisciplined, it becomes your greatest obstacle, filled with doubt, fear, and distractions. But when you learn to control it, it transforms into your strongest asset, guiding you toward clarity, confidence, and consistent growth. The challenge is that the mind naturally resists control. It is wired to seek comfort, avoid pain, and conserve energy. This is why you often find yourself procrastinating, overthinking, or choosing the easier path instead of the right one. Your mind tries to protect you from discomfort, but in doing so, it also prevents you from progressing. It convinces you to stay where you are, even if you are not satisfied, because the unknown feels more threatening than the familiar. To master your mind, the first step is awareness. You need to observe your thoughts without immediately reacting to them. Most people operate on autopilot, allowing their thoughts to dictate their actions without question. When a negative thought appears, they accept it as truth. When a fear arises, they treat it as a signal to stop. But awareness creates a gap between thought and action. It allows you to step back and ask, is this thought helping me or holding me back? This simple question can begin to shift your entire perspective. Once you become aware of your thoughts, the next step is control. This does not mean suppressing or ignoring your thoughts, but rather choosing which ones to focus on and which ones to let go. Your mind will generate countless thoughts throughout the day, many of which are repetitive or unproductive. You do not have to engage with all of them. By consciously directing your attention, you can reduce the influence of negative thinking and strengthen more constructive patterns. Discipline plays a crucial role in mastering your mind. Just like physical strength requires consistent training, mental strength is built through repeated effort. This includes developing habits that support focus, clarity, and resilience. It may involve setting clear goals, maintaining a routine, and pushing yourself to take action even when you do not feel like it. Discipline is what allows you to act based on your intentions rather than your impulses. Emotional control is another important aspect. Your emotions are closely linked to your thoughts, and they can either support or sabotage your actions. When you are overwhelmed by fear, anger, or frustration, your ability to think clearly is reduced. Mastering your mind means learning to manage these emotions instead of being controlled by them. It involves recognizing what you are feeling, understanding why you feel that way, and choosing how to respond rather than reacting impulsively. Focus is also essential in this process. In a world filled with distractions, maintaining attention on what truly matters is a challenge. Your mind is constantly pulled in different directions by external stimuli and internal thoughts. Without focus, your energy becomes scattered, and your progress slows down. Training your mind to concentrate on a single task or goal allows you to work more effectively and achieve better results. It helps you stay committed even when distractions arise. Another key element of mastering your mind is developing a strong sense of self-belief. Your thoughts shape your perception of what is possible. If you believe you are capable, you are more likely to take action and persist through challenges. If you believe you are not, you will hesitate and give up more easily. Building self-belief requires consistent reinforcement through your actions. Each time you follow through on a commitment, overcome a challenge, or step outside your comfort zone, you strengthen your belief in yourself. Your environment also influences your mental state. The information you consume, the people you interact with, and the habits you develop all contribute to how your mind operates. Surrounding yourself with positive influences and limiting exposure to negativity can make it easier to maintain control over your thoughts. This does not mean avoiding all challenges, but rather being intentional about what you allow to shape your mindset. Mastering your mind also involves accepting that you cannot control everything. There will always be external circumstances that are beyond your influence. Trying to control these can lead to frustration and stress. Instead, focusing on what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, and your responses, gives you a sense of stability and empowerment. It shifts your energy from resistance to action. Consistency is what turns these practices into lasting change. Mastery is not achieved in a single moment. It is the result of daily effort. There will be times when your mind drifts back into old patterns, when doubts resurface, or when discipline feels difficult. These moments are part of the process. What matters is your ability to recognize them and return to your practice without giving up. Over time, as you continue to train your mind, you begin to notice a shift. You become more aware of your thoughts, more intentional in your actions, and more resilient in the face of challenges. Situations that once triggered fear or doubt no longer have the same impact. You respond with greater clarity and confidence, making decisions that align with your goals rather than your fears. This transformation affects every area of your life. Your productivity improves because you are more focused and disciplined. Your relationships benefit because you are more emotionally aware and in control. Your personal growth accelerates because you are no longer held back by limiting beliefs. You start to realize that the barriers you once faced were not external, but internal. Mastering your mind is not about achieving perfection or eliminating all negative thoughts. It is about developing the ability to navigate your thoughts effectively, to choose your responses, and to stay aligned with your goals despite challenges. It is a continuous process of learning, adjusting, and improving, where each step forward strengthens your control and expands your potential.